Very good morning, everyone. Dear students, we started with chapter number 6 of history, that was weavers, iron smelters, and factory owners. And children, we discussed about the Indian textile and the world market, how it was famous everywhere. Fine, children, after that, we have seen some words which tell us about the histories from where they have derived, and then we have just gone through this order book, how lot of orders they were taken by the East India Company. And we have seen so many designs like bandhana design and printed design and so on. After that, children, see, we had to start with Indian textile in European markets. Fine. So, see, by the early 18th century, children, now, as we discussed in the previous module, that Indian textile was becoming very, very popular, like wool, silk makers in England. Now they started protesting against the import of Indian cotton textile. It is by the early 18th century. Why? Because they were worried. Fine, because there was a lot of demand of Indian textile. And why? Because it was of very fine quality. Fine. In 1720, children, the British government, they made a legislation. Fine, which banned the use of printed cotton textile, which was chintz. I told you it has derived from the word chint, and it was totally banned in England. And children, this act was known as Calico Act. Fine. At this time, textile industries, they started developing in England. Means in England, the textile industries were developing, so they were unable to compete with the Indian textile. So that's why English producers, they just wanted to keep themselves secure, keep their market secure within the country. They want to be doing all the competition, but not from outside. As I am again telling you that the Indian textile was of very fine quality. Now the first to grow under government protection was the calico printing industry. So this first industry was the calico printing industry, and it grew under the government protection. Now the Indian designs, they were just copying the Indian designs and printing in England. Fine. And it was printed on the white muslin. Malmal, I told you, malmal cloth. And it was just plain unbleached Indian cloth. They were just printing on it, and they were just imitating our designs, means the Indian designs. Fine, children. Now, competition with Indian textile. Now, when they were competing with the Indian textiles, now that time they were searching for some technological innovation. They wanted some technical invention in England. So, what they did in 1764, spinning jenny was invented by John Cale. What it helped out in which way? It increased the productivity of the traditional spindles. Now traditionally, when they were working with hands, lot of labor was required. Now with the help of this machine, what is a spinning jenny? It's a machine by which single worker could operate several spindles on which thread was spun. Now one person can do such job, whereas previously lot of people were required. Now when the wheel was turned, all the spindles they used to rotate, so it helped out. Then the second invention was, children, the invention of steam engine, and it was invented by Richard Arkwright in 1786. And it also brought a revolution in the cotton textile weaving. Fine. Now the clothes could be woven in a immense quantity, means a big quantity. And because of the steam engine, now it can be cheaply made. Fine. Now, however, Indian textiles continue to dominate the world Now still the Indian textile was dominating the world, children. Fine, till the end of the 18th century. Early 18th century it was banned, but till the end of the 18th century it was still competing. European trading companies, the Dutch, the French, and the English, now they had made enormous profits, a lot of profits out of this trade. Fine, now these companies, they were purchasing cotton and silk textile in India by importing silver. What they were doing, we have seen in the previous chapter how they were doing the trade. They were whatever raw material they were getting from there, they used to pay for it, they used to import silver for that. But you have already read in chapter 2, when the East India Company it gained a political power in Bengal, what were they doing? They no longer had to import precious metal to buy Indian goods. What they were doing? Instead, they were just collecting the revenues from the peasants and zamindar in India, and they were using the same revenue to buy the Indian textile. Means the money was also ours and the raw material was also ours. Fine, children. So this way they were doing. Now just you can just see where were the major centers of weaving in the late 18th century. So these were the centers. Fine. Now children, the question arises, who were weavers? Fine. The next topic is, who were weavers? Now children, weavers, they belong to certain communities which were, which were specialized, which were uh, they were master of weaving. Find their skills, they used to pass their skills from generation to generation. One generation is passing the skill to the other generation. The Tanti weavers of Bengal, the Julahas or Momin weavers of North India, and Sale and Kai Kolar and Devangs, they were in the South India. So children, these were the names. There were some communities famous for weaving. So these were some communities and their places they have given. They were very famous for weaving. Means the our weavers, they were also very specialized. Means they were master of their skill. Fine. The first stage of production was spinning. Now first of all, what they had to do, they had to spin. Now what is spin? Now a work done mostly by women. The women were spinning. Fine. Now the charkha and the takli were household spinning instruments. So how they were spinning it? They were spinning with the help of charkha and takli. Fine. Now the thread was spun on the charkha and rolled on the takli. Now it was spun on the charkha. They were spinning on the chakra and then they were rolling it on the takli. Fine. When the spinning was over, the thread was woven into cloth by the weaver. Now they had made the thread, then the weaver will make the cloth out of it. Fine. In most communities, weaving was a task done by men. So weavers, they were the men. Specialized mean they were the men, and spinning was done by women. Fine. Now after that, if you now that was of white color obviously. Now if you want a colored textile, what you have to do then? The thread was dyed by a dyer. So they had to go to a dyer for, and the dyer was known as, the person who used to dye the cloth, he was known as rangres. Dyeing means rang, putting rang on something. So rangres means the dyer. For printed clothes, the weavers needed the help of specialized block printers. They were known as chipigars. Means now just if you had to just color it, that for that they had to go to rangres. But if they wanted some printed stuff on that, printed blocks on that, then they had to go to the chipigars. Fine. Handloom weaving and occupations associated with it provided livelihood for millions of Indians. So millions of Indians, they were earning their livelihood out of these occupations. Fine. Means handloom weaving as well as the other things other occupations which were associated with this, they all were just getting their earning their livelihood out of this. Fine. Now the decline of Indian textile. Now we have seen previously that the Britishers, I mean the East India Company, how the people were protesting in England, and how it was they have stopped importing the Indian textile. Now, what they ultimately did? Now the decline of Indian textile started. Fine. Previously, it was flourishing very nicely. The development of Indian text in cotton industries in Britain. Now, I told you that there were cotton industries in Britain. Now affected textile producers in India in several ways. So the textile producers in India, they were affected by the development of cotton industries in Britain. Fine. Now what was the reason? First reason was Indian textile now had to compete with the British textile in European and American markets. Now previously Indian textile, was superior quality. We call it. It was, that time it was dominating the market. But now the Indian textile had to compete with the British textile now in the European as well as the American markets. Second is exporting textile to England also became increasingly difficult with the high duties were imposed on Indian textile imported into Britain. Now, see how they are declining it, how they started, how they wanted to decline. What they did, first of all, now they had to compete with the British, textile, and the second thing, now high duties were imposed on the import of Indian textile into Britain. Fine. So high duties, who's going to pay those high duties? By the beginning of the 19th century, English made cotton textile successfully ousted Indian goods from their traditional markets in Africa. Totally, the Indian goods were totally out of the markets of Africa, America, and Europe. Means the British textile was successful in doing so, in throwing the Indian textile out of the market. Fine. Thousands of weavers in India were now thrown out of employment. Obviously, when the demand is not there of certain things, how can we keep so many laborers, so many workers? So they were out of employment, they were thrown out of their jobs. Bengal weavers were the worst hit. Now Bengal was it was the main place, so there the weavers, they had a major hit, they faced a lot of problem. Fine. As compared to the others, English and European companies stopped buying Indian goods. Now nobody was buying Indian goods, and their agents no longer gave out advances to weavers. Now previously we have seen they were giving advance to the weavers to do, to make such clothes and that, but now it was not happening. Fine. For their supplies, now they were not giving any advance to the weavers. Distressed weavers wrote petition to the government to help them. Now they wrote to the government that please help out, what we are going to do now, this is happening with us. But worse was still to come. But still, if we say that something more worst was going to happen with them. By the 1830s, what happened? Britain cotton cloth flooded Indian markets. Now see, our raw material, and they are selling it also in the our market only. Now they started sending their cotton cloth in the Indian markets. In fact, by 1880s, two-thirds of the all cotton clothes worn by Indian were made of cloth produced in Britain. Now the Indian people, sorry, they started, wearing the Britain made clothes now. See how bad it is. This affected not only the specialist weavers but also the spinners. So obviously they are going to affect out of this. Sorry, because the cloth is not going in the other market, as well as in the own country as well, the people are not wearing the things made of their own country, which is happening now also. Fine. That's why we are saying that stop, ban the outside things and all that, wear Swadeshi things. So that time also this thing happened, sorry. Thousands of rural women who made a living by spinning cotton thread were rendered jobless. So obviously, whosoever was associated with this weaving and making clothes, they all were affected badly. Handloom weaving did not completely die in India, but if you talk about handloom weaving, it did not die completely. This was because some types of clothes could not be supplied by machine. Why? Why totally not died? Because some clothes were there which you can't totally make on machines. They need some, hand work as well. How could machines produce saris with intricate borders or clothes with traditional woven patterns? So there were some borders which were required, fine, and for those borders the machines were not, enough. They need some hands to work on that, means specialized hands. For that, these had a wide demand not only amongst the rich but also amongst the middle classes. For this they had a lot of demand also. For so not Nor did the textile manufacturers in Britain produce the very coarse cloth used by poor people in India. And moreover, the coarse cotton which was used by the poor, the Britain in the Britain, it was not, they were not making it. So for that purpose, some people, they were not rendered jobless. It was not completely, I mean, the handloom weaving was not completely dying. You must have heard of Sholapur in the western India and Madurai in South India. These towns, they emerged as important new centers of weaving in the late 19th century. So by the late 19th century, two new centers they come up. First was Sholapur in western India, and second is Madura in South India. Fine. So later during the nationalist movement, now national movement when it took place, Mahatma Gandhi, he talked to people. He told people to boycott the imported textile. Fine, and use the hand spun and hand woven clothes. You all know Swadeshi movement. Fine. Khadi gradually became a symbol of nationalism. So this khadi now also you see some shops of khadi India and all. So he said people to use the khadi, means to use the Indian made cloth. The charkha came to represent India. Now charkha, it represented India, and it was put at the center of the tricolor flag of the Indian National Congress adopted in 1931. So please underline, when did it happen? So it became symbol in 1931 on the national flag. Indian National Congress adopted it. What happened to the weavers and spinners who lost their livelihood? Now, previously we have discussed that they lost their livelihood, their earning. Now, what happened to them? Many weavers became agricultural laborers. Now they shifted their occupation. Now they became agriculture laborers. Some migrated to cities in search of work, and others they just went to the cities in search of some other work, and yet others went to out of the country to work in plantations in Africa and South America. And many people, they just went out as a laborer working in the plantations of Africa and South America. Fine. Some of these handloom weavers also found work in the new cotton mills that were established in Bombay, now Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Sholapur, Nagpur, and Kanpur. And some of the people, they got employment, they got their job in the new established, cotton mills which were established in these places. Please underline. And this way they all earned their livelihood. Cotton mills come up. Now see, cotton mills come up. The first cotton mill in India was set up as a spinning mill in Bombay in 1854. So please underline, first cotton mill was set up in India as a spinning mill in Bombay, that is in 1854. From the early 19th century, Bombay had grown as an important port for the export of raw cotton from India to England and China. Obviously, it was close to the vast black soil tract of the Western India, so where cotton was grown. So, for cotton, growing cotton, see which type of soil is required. Black soil is required. So Bombay was very near to the place where it was cotton was grown. When the cotton textile mills came up, they could get supplies of raw material with ease. So they get the raw material with very ease, because the nearby areas were having black soil and there the people were growing cotton only. By 1900, over 84 mills started operating in Bombay. Now see, by 1900, 84 mills they started operating in Bombay. Fine. Many of these were established by Parsis and Gujarati businessmen who had made their money through trade with China. Now, who established? They were established by Parsis and Gujaratis. And where did they get the money from? They got the money with the trade with their trade with China. Fine. Mills came up in other cities too, and in other cities also the mills were made. The first mill in Ahmedabad, please underline, was started in 1861. In 1861, there was a mill made in Ahmedabad. A later year, a mill was established in Kanpur. The next year, Kanpur in the United Provinces. Fine. So they were the provinces, United Provinces. Now, growth of cotton mills led to a demand for labor. Now, when there were cotton mills, obviously they demanded the laborers. Fine. Now, what happened after that? Now, thousands of poor peasants, artisans, agricultural laborers moved to the cities to work in the mills. Now, many people they started moving towards the cities for getting work in the mills. In the first few decades of the existence, the textile factory industry in India faced many problems. In the starting years, they faced many problems. Fine. It found it difficult to compete with the cheap textile imported in Britain. So it was very hard to compete with the Britain textile. In most countries, government supported industrialization by imposing heavy duties on imports. And we have discussed also that in many countries, the government they imposed high duties on the imports. This eliminated competition and protection infant industries. Fine. So protected infant, this eliminated competition means to eliminate the outer textiles out only from the country. So it protected the infant industries, means the small baby industries, you can say, because they were flourishing. The colonial government in India usually refused such protection to local industries, and there the colonial government they refused this. Fine. The first major spurt in the development of cotton factory production in India. Now, uh, the first major spurt is a sort of rebel, you can say, in the development of cotton factory production in India. Therefore, was during the First World War, when textile import from Britain declined. During the First World War, it declined, and Indian factories were called upon to produce cotton for the military supplies. Now, during the First World War, now the supplies were cut off from Britain. Fine, the imports were cut off. So now the East India Company they had to depend on the Indian textile. They demanded from the Indian textile to make cloth for the military supplies. So this way now they had to depend on the Indian textile. So this way now they started flourishing. Fine, children. Now the next topic we will start in the next module, the sword of Tipu Sultan and Wood's steel. Fine. Thank you and have a nice day.